Hello again, fellow members of the A.R.E, the Edgar Cayce Center in Virginia Beach. And I'm John Van Auken, the director of the Edgar Cayce Foundation. And this is our March lesson in the Enlightenment course we do every year for members. It's one of your member benefits. And this is March, and we've already done January and February, which were very interesting to look into. Now we're going to move into positive psychology, because the theme for the year is health, happiness, and a meaningful life. And we've been looking at different aspects of that. Well, this month, we're going to look at positive psychology's perspective on this and an acronym called PERMA, P-E-R-M-A, and they are pleasure, the P, engagement, the E, relationships, the R, and meaning, the M. And finally, accomplishment, the A, PERMA. And we go into this in great detail in your lesson. And you know you can get your lessons downloaded or just view them online at the member section. And if you're watching this video, you're in the member section because that's where this is located. And then after exploring all of that in the lesson, we move over to some publications posted by livescience.com. And in that, they have two postings that are very insightful to human contentment, satisfaction, pleasure, happiness. And then the research shows that happy people are healthy people, and vice versa. Happiness actually tends to produce healthiness. Interesting there. In that part, we really get into some details. So let's take a look at this. If you've got your lesson, you can look at it as I go through it. These 7 things that will make you happy are listed by Stephanie Pappas in her posting. She lists get culture. Get culture. Now, what does that mean? And she explains that it means getting to know a variety of subjects, and human beings who have a breadth of interest and knowledge are happier people. They have more of life and life's multiplicity in their understanding and their awareness, and that brings a contentment and a happiness. She also says in her list, be grateful. Grateful people get into a disposition, a vibe that does produce happiness. For example, they did a test on a lot of people who wrote thank you letters or thank you cards, and found that that gratitude lasted for days after they mailed the letters or the cards. People who do Valentine cards often are happy for a few days after they did it. Something in appreciation, in gratitude for what you have. And when my life was very stressful, very difficult, and I was traveling and struggling a lot, I found that being grateful for just the little things, like a better seat on the airplane, a good hotel room, a good crowd of interested souls who wanted to hear the teachings of Edgar Cayce and Body, Mind, Spirit. I found that just being happy about those little things actually gave me strength and endurance that my friends who knew what my life was like would say, man, I couldn't do that grind that you do. But I actually found joy in the little things, even though it had a lot of struggle involved as well. Gratitude, be grateful. Edgar talks about this in his Thanksgiving readings. Cultivate altruism. This comes out of the journal Science. People who give money away rather than spend it on themselves and get a self-satisfaction actually have more happiness and pleasure, even if it's just a church tithing, which might be small. Remember Jesus's comment about the widow who put one little, I think it was a mite, in the contribution bin, that she gave more than any of the rich guys because she gave a greater percentage of what she had, which was very little. But people who volunteer their energy and time are altruistic. And they found out that volunteers in this research report live longer. I mean, if you're into longevity, give a little bit of yourself for no reason than to help others, than to give. That's altruistic. In health psychology, they also found that people who are altruistic are most likely to have stronger relationships and stronger marriages, because it means you're not self-centered. You're out and thinking of others. If you have that disposition, then your relationships are probably going to be good and strong. And especially a serious one like marriage, if you're thinking or have at least consideration of the other person, that's going to build strong relationship and a good marriage. Next comes get nostalgic. Now, I thought this was a funny one, but it came out of the Journal of Personality, in which they found that people who look back to the positive that happened in their lives often bring happiness forward into their present life. So if you can look back, and Edgar used to say, focus on the good, focus on the virtues, and minimize the bad and the vices. Focus on what went right. Now, I have shared with many of you before that after my wife passed away, we had a good marriage for a long time. She came to me in a dream. And in the dream, she said to me, listen, I have something I want to talk with you about. So I'm okay. And she said, you keep, and she used the word loop thinking about all the things you wished you had said or you wished you had done. None of that comes over here. What comes over is what we did well together and how we raised the children. So do you think you could stop loop thinking all these things you wished you had done? We did good things. Focus on them. Man, I was ready for that. So I agreed and I said, yes, I'm ready to stop this pattern of thinking that I've gotten stuck with. Before I leave that, isn't it interesting that she's dead, quote, quote, and yet she knows what I'm thinking? Are we that connected in oneness? According to Edgar Cayce, we sure are. if we carry a little happiness, if we carry a little positivism, others are affected by it because we are more interconnected than we realize. And you become a light, even though you haven't said a word, you haven't been preaching, they feel it, they pick it up because the collective consciousness includes them and you. This must be how Doris knew my thinking, my thoughts. There is a collective consciousness to which we are all connected. And I think that's how Edgar Cayce could give such fantastic readings of others. Now, I know he taught that he could see their Akashic record or their book of life and could read that. But if you read his readings and study them well, you'll see that he's even picking up on present attitudes, thoughts, and he's anticipating what you're desiring to do. How is he getting all of that? Unless he's in that oneness with us or the person he's giving the reading for. So keep that in mind. Get nostalgic. And remember, Cayce says, I got it in here on the lesson, focus on the good and the virtues, minimize the bad and the vices. And if you bring forth pleasant memories, you'll smile. Your heart will be happy. It's an important thing to do, especially if they've passed on or you're no longer close. It still contributes to the whole of your health, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Next is get a pet. A lot of research has been done on the effect of pets. The one in our study is from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, that people who have pets say their pets increase their own self-esteem as well as their feelings of belonging and meaning. Many elderly people or people who live alone find that the presence of a pet brings a life near you and with you in your house, even though you're the only human. And because most pets have unconditional love, and even if you do make a mistake or yell at them, they forget things so quickly. Once you come back into your good treatment, good attitude, I have watched this in animals and pets that I have had and known, and also in those of my family. Somehow animals have a disposition that is always amenable to what is occurring and what the situation is. And if it changes, they change with it. So your self-esteem goes up because they care about you. And you find meaning in that you are the caretaker for them. Their life is in your hands. And so you gain something in that. So a lot of research, and any of you who have been to hospitals know about the care dogs that come through and visit children and adults who are dealing with physical ailments and all, and how that cheers people up. A dog with a wagging tail is a happy thing. So yes, indeed. Next, physical contact with humans, not pets. Your pet can't fulfill all your human needs for happiness. Edgar Cayce says this too. You need to have human contact as well as animal contact, or the plant kingdom. If those of you who have loved to have plants around you and talk to your plants, and I have those myself, and gardening and all of that, you really get, I have actually a feeling for my fruit trees. I don't know how to explain it to you, but Edgar is trying to add that because you are a creation and a member of humanity, you need to engage with the life forces of humanity. And so you have to get up and get out, meet people, chat with them, engage them, listen to them, participate. I don't know how else to share this element with you, but it's an important one according to big research, that humans need humans and people need people. Now, you might be a shy person, but even a shy person needs to be around human beings in an interactive manner. And that brings about a sense of belonging, of human nature. And when you go back to your isolation, you bring some of that with you. Now, I know the COVID virus has really put a damper on a lot of our human interaction, and it's been very difficult. Many of us who live alone have cabin fever. Many of us who have families feel like we're all stuck in this box and we need to get out. And yet we're concerned about COVID and all the mutations of COVID. I think we've approached in the US 900,000 deaths from this terrible virus. It's a major change in the world. It has to be among the prophecies of the shift to the new era. It has to be. It's just global, worldwide, every culture. And therefore, it has to have something to do with forcing humanity to get in touch with their inner consciousness, their inner selves, and pull away from earthy reality, materialism, letting this environment be the dominant one, when really, as Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. So maybe the virus is forcing us to do a little bit more of that. But our divinity needs that. We are divine, but we're also human. So we do need human contact. We need to get out and get among us. Mask up, do whatever you can to stay as safe as possible. But, sometimes if I don't have anybody who's really willing to get together, they're all nervous. And this goes back to 2020, when the virus really hit hard for the first time. And then the Delta mutation and so forth, they were very inhibiting and frightening. And even members of my own family didn't want me to come visit because I was a public person out there among the public. And so they were a little scared about their children and all. I understood that. So I would go to a bookstore and look around and see what humans had been writing and what magazines were doing. And I'd chat with anybody else who was there. The grocery store, I would chat with the cashiers, and I would sometimes go to the mall and just walk the mall and see all the young people. I was one of the few gray-haired people in that mall, and see what they were doing. And of course, they're so brave. They know no fear in youth, and they were all out and about and with various activities that I found interesting. I would go over to A.R.E.'s library or lobby, and there would be people of like mind to what I have, and to their bookstore. I don't know where you live, but there's surely a health store or a holistic center somewhere. And now many of them were closed down, I agree, and they're starting to open back up. Still, many are requiring masks, and I understand that. But we can't let this virus damage too much of our humanity, even though it's probably pushing us toward our divinity. And that divinity is the kingdom within us. We need to expand our consciousness so that we are in touch with the universal mind of God, of Mother and Father, of the heavenly creation. That's a must. Even Cayce says you have to move that way. That's where the forces of life are headed. If you don't move that way, you're going to be very disappointed when the veil drops and all the world sees the truth. And Jesus said there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth when that happens. So you and I have to be on the journey toward enlightenment. It's a force that's moving, and you either move with it or get shocked by it when it's reached, when it finally manifests itself. And Edgar repeats over and over that how you have helped others helps you. What goes around comes around. Well, you have to engage with others to help others. Now, I know we've been doing a lot more emailing, phone calls, but when possible, physical contact is very important. Physical contact with human beings, not just pets, human beings. And yet trying to be safe and not spread the virus. Okay, tough times when it comes to that. Let's move to the next page of the lesson. Okay, Miss Pappas, does she have a degree here? Let me see. She's an editor and an author, a freelance author. Anyway, she lists number 7, and let me see where she got this. She got it out of the journal Emotion. She did a lot of professional research here. Don't focus on happiness. Now here she just gave us a list of 7 things that'll make you happy. And the 7th one is don't focus on happiness. Apparently, we get so intense about our focus to be happy that the stress makes us unhappy. The editors of Emotion say that it's better for you to do things that make you happy than to drive yourself to make happiness happen. Do you get the idea? Let me see if there's something else here we should consider. Okay, who is this? Mass. This is a Professor Mass out of the University of Denver. And you'll see it in your lesson. Wanting to be happy can make you less happy. If you explicitly and purposefully focus on happiness, that appears to have a self-defeating quality to it from their research. Interesting. It's not that trying to be happy is a lost cause. Mass, I think it's Mass, M-A-U-S-S. The professor says it's just that you may want to pursue activities that make you happy naturally rather than happiness itself. So happiness is a result. It's not a destination. So engage in the other things the 6 things we've just discussed, and you'll bring happiness. And remember, with happiness comes healthiness. Happy people tend to be more healthy. Consider these statistics, which will be very surprising. They come from Harvard University medical school research project. Arthur Brooks came out with a new book recently called From Strength to Strength, Finding Success, Happiness, and Deep Purpose in the Second Half of Life. Many of our Edgar Cayce members and friends are in the second half of their life. So here's what he did. He would ask his students to imagine. Now, his students are mostly in their upper 20s, mid to upper 20s. He's teaching a graduate university's class. To imagine themselves 10 years from now. And he would ask them, will you be happier or less happy than you are today? Now, these graduate students, the majority said they would be happier. Then he read them the statistics. Of course, most of them felt 50 years from now, they'd be 70, in their 70s. And that's not likely to be a very happy time. And I'm 75 and very happy. Certainly there were rough parts through life, but this is a pretty good phase. So his students were shocked when he showed them the data that happiness tends to decline throughout young adulthood and middle age. Now think about why that is. It's the stress of building a career, perhaps building a home, taking care of a family, supporting a family. Those things are challenging and difficult. Then once the children grow up or your career is moving along well, even if you don't have children, and your friendships have stayed with you, at least the good friends, the solid friends are still with you, middle age starts to change things. So after that, the statistics say things head toward happiness into one's mid-60s. Then something strange happens, he says. Older people split into 2 groups as they get old, those getting happier and those getting unhappier. Now, my father is 102 years old, and he's a happy guy. He's just grateful for every day. He gets up, he says, hey, how you doing? Now, he doesn't go out much. He doesn't move around a lot. He is mobile. He sits in his chair, but he's happy, and he has all the information and stories and stuff from his children who have children. So he's got grandchildren. So this is one of those who splits into 2 groups. He splits into the happier group, even though he's 102. Mom passed when she was 97, and she was a happy lady. Every time you went over to their condo, she would just smile and welcome you. And then there's the group that in the 70s and 80s are less happy. Often the number one reason is loneliness. Yep, you would think it'd be a physical ailment, but most of the research that's been done on very elderly people shows loneliness. Now, Arthur Brooks, in his, this is all in your lesson, Arthur Brooks in his book points out that if you keep learning if you keep yourself interested in getting involved in things, that is an element toward happiness. He also has two other things he points out in his book. If you have the right kind of love, that love endures. And those bonds, those love bonds endure. Or, like we talked, nostalgia actually brings up good memories of those love bonds, those love relationships, maybe with a lifelong friend or a parent or one of your children, your spouse, of course. It endures, even if it's no longer in existence. The nostalgia of it keeps the happiness flowing. So the type of love, he says, that makes people happiest. And then the meaning of life is surprisingly important, and yet he says surprisingly simple. And he says to us, write a happy ending to your journey. Write a happy ending to your journey. Do you see how much is being done in research related to human happiness, related to aging and longevity? Because we're all living longer. And the Bible says eventually our average age will be 120 years old. So keep all of this in mind and start looking at your day. And what can I do to add to my happiness? Because it's an activity that makes you happy. And that's what you want to look for. And keep in mind, people need people, even if it's email or Zoom or phone call. People need people. And when you're in your 80s and 90s, or like my dad in his hundreds, they love people. They love company with people. So you have to build that. Don't isolate yourself and stay involved, and keep learning, keep being interested in life. And that brings longevity, happiness. Now, of course, we all know there's karmic elements because Edgar Cayce taught us this, and that we're actually souls, not physical personalities. Therefore, in some of the readings that Cayce gave, the soul actually was ready to move on from this world because this world isn't the ideal eternal reality for us. The soul world is, the spirit. And so it is true that some will move away at 40 years of age, some will leave at 50 or 60, and some will stay into their hundreds because they're interested in contributing and enjoying life here. But the transition will come because we are not destined to be physical beings forever. We are children of the Spirit, the Great Spirit, and the Mother, Father, Creator seeks the spiritual family in the spiritual realms. But this is a purposeful incarnation to apply ourselves and grow. Cayce often said soul growth is the goal. Soul growth. But he included mind is the builder. Mind needs to grow and build the reality, the higher self, the higher perspective, the higher purposes, and that brings about soul growth. And this is an incarnation that is an opportunity to apply ourselves, to engage with others, to resolve our own karma, our own patterns of behavior that aren't ideal, and to be a channel of help to others while we are incarnate with them. Edgar said, live your life purposefully for a purposeful intention, because your soul incarnated this time, despite all your karmic challenges and relationships that are difficult, your soul and my soul intentionally, purposefully incarnated to resolve some karma, to strengthen one's virtues and wisdom, expand consciousness, raise our vibes. But then also he always listed to be a blessing to others. Make the world around you a better place for you having been there. Now that's a mission right there. In doing that, he said, it will bring happiness to your soul. And then you've got body, mind, and spirit working for you. This is the bigger approach, the bigger way to live our lives. And it will naturally result in the three things we're looking for in this year's goals: health, happiness, and a meaningful life. A body, mind, spirit training course for members. It's exclusive to members, so please keep your membership renewed, because we'll keep doing these every year. And people write me all the time saying, this is why I became a member, so I could grow physically, mentally, and spiritually. Well, we're researching all the modern stuff and all the Cayce readings on these topics. And so it's important that you keep with the study and apply it. Remember, Edgar said, knowledge not used is sin. Ooh. He said, do something, right or wrong, do something, because in the doing comes the understanding. In the doing, you gain. I'll bet you many of us right now watching this video have something we can say, oh, been there, done that, not going there again. You see, that's wisdom, even though you're saying it as, oh, God, did I suffer on that situation? You actually are admitting you gained wisdom from that suffering, from that difficulty. You see, in the doing, even though it might have been wrong, came the understanding, the enlightenment. Now, speaking of doing, let me put this in front of the camera here, get it right. You have a worksheet in your lesson, and this helps us get through the 4 weeks to the next lesson, because it has a series of disciplines, we used to call it in study group, disciplines or activities, and we track them using the worksheet. It's designed to be sort of a focusing element and a tracking element. How did you do this week, next week, for 4 weeks until the next lesson comes out? And you'll notice the February lesson had the 3 elements of the February study, which was tuning, communing, and contributing. And they meant tuning in, communing with, and contributing to, which is going to bring happiness if you get involved with those things. So I encourage you to, all the lessons are still up there. You can go look back at other lessons. If you're new member, you can find them all. You can find last year's lessons, and I think they still have the 2020 lessons up, and you can look at that. And there may even be an archive where you could go back further. So the intention by the A.R.E administration is to give you real in-depth understanding of what Edgar Cayce channeled, and then what humanity through research and ancient wisdom have brought forward, so that you can fully grow spiritually, mentally, and physically. Okay, so I will see you next month with another lesson. Blessings to you. Check out the worksheet. Bye-bye.